Today on Alive at 5, we talked with NBA.com writer Shaun Powell about the significance of this moment and what could come next.
Because I really do want to know, what was your reaction when you started hearing that the Bucks players were not coming out onto the court last night?
Well, not that much surprise because when this shooting incident happened, it happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin, which is about 40 miles south of Milwaukee. So it kind of hit the Bucks players close to home. The part of me that was a little surprised is that these are basketball players. It takes a lot for them not to play. This is what they do. This is what they love. They've been playing their entire lives. And this is really the first time in NBA history that players boycotted, a team boycotted a game because of racial injustice. There was a point in 1961 where Bill Russell and the black players of the Boston Celtics refused to play in an exhibition game in Lexington, Kentucky, but that game was played. This is something altogether different.
And I heard so much on social media from NBA players saying it said so much that they were still having to make this decision today, all those years after that 1961 stand. And players from different teams and different leagues joined in, Shaun, in protest, whether it was soccer or baseball, WNBA as well. And I wanted to read a tweet from Joe Burrow, of course, Heisman-winning quarterback, played at LSU, now back home in Ohio, playing for the Bengals. And he wrote on Twitter today, "How can you hear the pain of black people, what they're going through, and dismiss it as nothing? How can you hear the pain and respond with anything other than 'I stand with you'?" Have you, in your conversations, heard any more about maybe some more coordination between the NBA and some of these other leagues moving forward in terms of protesting?
I don't think there's anything organized, but for sure there is a shared brotherhood. They're all athletes, and when something affects one group, it sort of directly affects another.